You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
We get to go international again today, continuing our series with our international partners all around the globe, and looking forward to sharing the story with you as we head to Eurasia. Yes. Where is Eurasia? We'll find out in just a little bit. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Now, when I took geography, like way back in the day, back when we had to use pencils in school, yeah, I know, exactly. I don't remember there being a part of the world called Eurasia. So now we have to go to Eurasia to find out where it is. Joining us today, the Reverend James Krikava. He serves the Lord as Regional Director for LCMS Office of International Mission in Eurasia. Pastor Krikava, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about this. Define Eurasia for us, for those who maybe need some clarity on where that is.
Actually, you'll find the word Eurasia used in the secular world as well, but it really, what does it mean for LCMS? Mm-hmm. The four regions of the world are the Latin America, Caribbean, that we know where that is, and Africa, we know where that is. And when we think of Asia, I suppose mostly we think of the eastern part of Asia, China, for example. And whereas Eurasia is kind of a catch-all because part of the Eurasian world kind of gravitates towards Europe. And so Eurasia is Europe, and that includes all of Europe. And the Asia part also includes the Middle East, which isn't technically Asia either. But it's in there, and of course we can't get people into the Middle Eastern countries because of Muslim governments don't allow it. But we do actually do a lot of work with those people as they live in Europe, especially in Germany. We have that work especially among the Persians or the Iranians and people from Western Afghanistan, who speak a similar language to Iran, but then of course Russia is a huge country, but part of Russia is Europe, and part of Russia is Asia, and so that's kind of where we get our word Eurasia.
Mm-hmm. That region spans a lot of different cultures and languages. What does your work actually look like serving that wide variety of people and cultures?
Well, it is diverse, that's for sure. And I did forget to mention one thing that's also in the Eurasia region that probably doesn't belong in it in a certain sense, and that's Mongolia. But the reason we have that Mongolia is included in Eurasia is because the work that we're doing in Mongolia is among Kazakhstan people, and that is definitely part of Central Asia. And then also India is South Asia, but that also has been placed into the Eurasia region. So that makes it even bigger than you said. But in our work, we really do have the most languages to deal with, and it really is difficult that way. When we put somebody on the ground in an area, that person has to learn that language. I myself was a missionary in the Czech Republic for 16 years before I took this position, and it was absolutely necessary for me to learn Czech language, and the other missionaries as well. And so where we have missionaries on the ground, they basically learn the language of that country. But at the same time, there's a lot of work that we do in Eurasia that is either in English or in Russian. And so we've kind of divided it up that way. We have a lot of theological education that I can talk about in a bit if you like. And most of that theological education goes on in English, at least for Europe, and then probably Russian for the work that goes on in Russian-speaking countries.
So share with us a bit more about the various ways in which our international workers are serving in all these various regions. You mentioned theological education being one of those. Are there other ways that our international workers are serving throughout these regions?
Yes, the other one is the first one I said is that those would be the church planters.
Mm.
Now, for example, we have missionaries in Germany who are ministering in German. One in Frankfurt, one in Kaiserslautern, and then we have Kim Biltman. She's a deaconess. She's in Leipzig, and her partner is finally finally being allowed to come to Germany in July. Rachel Krause, and they work among the Persian, mostly Persian and Afghani refugees. And the reason I say mostly with those is because they're the ones that seem to be the most interested in Christianity. When Angela Merkel, kind of started this program, they spread the net pretty wide. But what we found out is that the Persian people, you have to remember that Iran and Afghanistan, they were forced into Islam centuries ago, and by the sword, basically, and they actually still have a sort of memory of that, or a historical one anyway. And so when they came to Germany, they were interested in getting out from under the shackles of Islam. Whereas some of the other countries that have come to Germany, like Syria, for example, or Iraq, they're more interested in building mosques in Germany and making Germany into a Muslim country, But and so that's kind of why we're so heavy into the Persian language, which is Farsi, and the language of Western Afghanistan, which is Dari, and it's kind of a dialect of Farsi.
Tell us more about the theological education that happens. There's at least one seminary, two seminaries? How many seminaries are there? Theological education hubs are there in the Eurasia region?
Yes. Let me talk about that a little bit. We have historically done work in Russia, and that takes place now in St. Petersburg at our partner churches. It's not called a seminary; it's called a Bible Institute, I think, and or Theological Institute, I guess is that what they call it. And there they train pastors for Russian speaking churches. So it would be normal for somebody, say from Georgia, not our Georgia, but Russian Georgia, to come up and study in St. Petersburg and then go back to Georgia, because that person can learn in Russian. Even Georgian is nothing like Russian, but they all speak it. The same thing with Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. They have their own language, but they all speak Russian. And so we've been working there. We have one missionary named Jerry Lawson, or Pastor Jerry Lawson, and he is currently teaching in that church body. And that church body is called the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Ingria in Russia. And it's called that for a real purpose. It was originally a Finnish church, but now it's completely Russified. It came into Russia back at the time of Peter the Great, which I think is like fairly early in the 1700s, if I'm not mistaken. And then St. Petersburg was built in Ingria. But historically, it's actually a Finnish place, so that church it still has some congregations that hold Finnish services, but it's mostly Russian. Then we also do Russian work in Ukraine, and that's in Odessa, and that work has kind of taken the shape of seminars where we either have somebody living there or we bring people in, or both. And right now we're deploying Pastor Andrew Feder, who will settle with his family in Odessa. They just got their clearance after the COVID business, and so they'll be leaving like any time. They're they're all ready to go. They've been ready to go for a long time, but COVID has kept us out. And there they do like once a month, a week-long seminar, and that's for their pastors, because many of their pastors are you might say are a little bit undereducated, or there's more that they should learn. But and then there are seminary students and pre-seminary students there, and Pastor Federer will be working with them, along with we have two people there who are teaching English as a second language, the Bodwin couple, and they've been there for about a year now, and they've been doing just excellent work, because again, even though it's a Russian speaking seminary, it's the need for English is high, because in order for these partners or these people who are getting together theologically, in order for them to communicate, English is pretty much the new Latin, if you will, for the church. And so there's a lot of value in teaching English to these seminary students, and getting them up to speed so that they can meet with us in the future. All the churches in Europe basically speak English. That's just the nature of the beast. Oh yeah, and then in Europe, our latest venture, which is very exciting, is called we call it the Livonian Project, but it's really in Latvia. But in Luther's time, Livonia was what that area of the world was called, and Luther actually wrote a couple of letters to the Livonians about the work that they were doing. They embraced the Reformation very early on, and in fact, today's Latvia, is called a Lutheran country, kind of like the Scandinavian countries. And Estonia to some degree too, but that's much smaller. And Lithuania went Roman Catholic, but there is a very good partner in Lithuania. It's not a huge church, but it's a nice one, a good one. Anyway, with the Latvian church is big enough so that they have been able to support their own seminary in the Latvian language for many years. And we've had Missouri Synod missionaries working with them in that seminary since the early 90s. And now an opportunity presented itself, and that a few years ago, the European Union, when that made an educational reform, which said that if your institution is accredited, and the Riga Seminary is accredited in Latvia, but if it's accredited in your European Union country, and you will offer your curriculum in English, anyone who takes that curriculum in English will get a certified degree or an accredited degree that's valid throughout the entire EU. And so we jumped on that, and that's under the directorship of Dr. John Bombaro, just a wonderful leader, and he's getting this thing going. We've been operating now for about a semester or so, along with Dr. Charles Courtwright, who lives in Latvia. And I believe Dr. Bombaro has lived in Latvia. We talked about moving him to Berlin because, but we haven't made a decision yet. But the reason for it is because, excuse me, we're using Eurasia is now using the old Latin school in Wittenberg that the LCMS is a co-owner of, and they renovated. It's a beautiful facility, and we hope to hold intensive courses for this Livonian project, or this Latvian seminary in English there. And so things are like going famously. It's amazing. I know that they already have 21 students from our region taking the English language course, and are in fact aiming to become pastors. There's a lot more students than that, but there's probably close to 40 taking the courses, but they're not seminary bound. They're just taking it for interest.
We're learning about the Lord's work in the Eurasia region for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod Office of International Mission. We're talking with the Reverend James Krikava. We have more to learn, and we'll continue that conversation in just a moment here on the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
Today we're talking with the Reverend James Krikava. He's the Regional Director for Eurasia for the LCMS Office of International Mission, talking about the Lord's work in Eurasia, which covers a large portion of the world, a lot of international workers serving in this part of the world. What are some of the challenges, Pastor Krikava, that the church has faced in the past year, or just even in recent months as well? What are some of the challenges that our brothers and sisters in Christ are facing in your part of the world?
Okay, well, let me start this way. One wonderful thing that happened, I can't tell you the exact date, but not that many months ago, is that the LCMS has formed a full fellowship partner arrangement with the Evangelical Lutheran Mission Diocese of Finland. Mm-hmm. And that is a church body that is not affiliated with the state church of Finland, and all of the state churches, well, maybe all of the state churches everywhere, but the state churches in Scandinavia are exceedingly liberal and not something that we would want to be a part of. But this group broke away from the state church, and they've been operating for quite a while now, and through the CTCR, they have been having talks for a while, a couple of years, probably a few years, and now they've decided, and now our President Harrison has recommended that church become a full partner with us. It's a wonderful thing because they're really good. They're really great Lutherans, and the Finns are very tough people, strong, and stubborn where they need to be when it comes to Lutheranism. And it's really something wonderful for me because they also are very highly educated. And they have several people that I actually hope to use in our work, like, for example, sending one of their PhD candidates down to Odessa to teach a week-long seminar, or send them to Riga to do the same, or to Wittenberg. So it's like getting a whole bunch of resources. We're real happy about that. In fact, they have their old bishop, whose last name is Risto, or no, his first name is Risto, Bishop Risto, we call him. He retired, and they elected a new bishop, and his name is Poyola. And a wonderful guy. He's well known in America, and he will be consecrated as bishop. Well, he was supposed to be consecrated a year ago, but COVID put the kibosh on that, and so he will be consecrated as the bishop of their church the 1st of August this year. And we're trying to get there. We're going to make every effort to go to that, but he, along with another pastor in the church, were involved in publishing a book in Finnish on Christian sexuality, and of course, in a book like that, you're going to bump up against the LGBT agenda, and some of that's you're going to bump up against women's ordination, and they have actually been charged by their government with a hate crime. They're not in jail, but they will have to go to court soon, and we in the Missouri Synod are making efforts to try to support them, not only with our prayers, but even hopefully letters, hopefully a joint letter from the Synod and also from the International Lutheran Council that Missouri Synod is part of, and complaining to the government that this is an infringement of the government upon the faith of a church body. And so I'm optimistic that it'll be resolved and nothing will happen. But it does show something pretty unhealthy in our world, where governments are now, where we have true cases of governments trying to seriously meddle in the doctrine of a church. And that's alarming, because if it happens there, it can happen anywhere. And I mean, I would even say in our own country, we have to be somewhat vigilant and make sure that kind of thing, doesn't overtake us as well. So I'm optimistic that things will work out for the best, but I also think we have to make an effort to back their play and defend them as our brothers in Christ. A similar instance is happening in Ukraine with a church partner that we're working with, which is called, the official name of that church is the German Evangelical Lutheran Church of Ukraine, but and that would be okay. There'd be nothing wrong with that. We have German Lutheran churches in America as well, but Germany itself has put government pressure on the Ukrainian government to ouster the bishop, the standing bishop there, for rejecting women's ordination and for not complying with the LGBT agenda that the German church would, and I mean the German state church, the Evangelische Lutherische Kirche in Deutschland, and they would like to see the government put pressure on Meshevsky. Well, they're succeeding, and it's quite alarming to us. It doesn't mean that we can't keep working there, but it might mean losing a certain recognition of the state that this is a church that has freedom of religion.
Have you seen, or what kinds of blessings have you seen in the last year or so? And we have just a couple of minutes left. But
Okay.
What are some of the highlights or ways that you've seen God blessing all of this work being done in the Eurasia region?
Okay. Well, thank you. I a lot of things, and I'd like to talk more than 2 minutes, but I know I'm limited.
Sure.
So I'll on the side of theological education, we're making great strides on that. And actually, in some ways, COVID helped us out because it forced us to become savvy at doing Zoom classroom or remote classroom, and so we have so many more students in it than we probably would have had we had just a residential seminary. Lots I could say about that, but I want to move to another region, or a sub-region of Eurasia, and we call it the Balkan Mediterranean region. That started out with an alliance missionary named Soren Triffa, who became who did his vicarage with us. He had gotten his education at the university, like many of them do in Europe, and he's just a wonderful Lutheran guy, and we ended up doing a vicarage with him, having a colloquy with him, and then ordaining him to do work in Romania, because in Romania there's no Lutheran church that conducts their business or conducts their church work in Romanian. There's a German church there that's very liberal, and a Hungarian church there, Lutheran church there, that is even more liberal. And so this guy started a church plant in Bucharest. It's thriving. It's doing just fine. They started another church plant in Suceava, which is not as big as Bucharest, but it is still a few 100,000 people large. And then they have a new plan for another church plant in Brasov, which is the biggest Lutheran area. That's in Transylvania, which is part of Romania. But they've also branched out from there into Bulgaria, Greece, and Italy. And we are now in the process of sending missionaries into Italy. We've got seminary students coming from Italy to this course that Dr. Bombara was doing. I just couldn't be more happy about what's happening in our region. The Lord has truly opened doors for us that we might never have thought of trying to open, and kind of kicking us through them. And it's been a really wonderful time. And I just expect more of the same. These bits of persecution that are coming out, the devil loves to irritate people. And Luther always said, just laugh at him. So that's what we're doing.
Thanks be to God for all those blessings and for all of those opportunities to bring the good news of Christ. Pastor Krikava, thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today and for sharing a great update of the Lord's work in Eurasia.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.